you've really challenged the way typically people are taught how to manage risk. And I guess academics, whether it's universities or those that choose to go further and do master's degrees and PhDs and a second PhD, and typically it sounds like they get put more and more in a box of actually being fearful. Now you tackle an issue of risk when there actually may be alternatives, how you can get around the challenges that you have with starting up, with expanding. We also see it with Africa, where even with this conference, some of the international delegates that have come in for the first time, they've been completely blown away with just the quality of life that is there in Zambia, the quality of the people, the warmth that they've been received with. I hope my international delegates do agree with what I'm saying here, because typically media and the textbooks paint a more gloomy picture from statistics. So I guess my question then becomes, do you feel the further you go into education, the more it constrains one with challenging what the status quo is? So if you had gone all the way and worked for a PhD, it would have obviously slowed down the journey that you started at the age of 16, but do you think then you'd have accelerated and be maybe somewhere further than where you are today, or you feel maybe the path taken is one actually that has gotten to where you are today?
I will answer that question. You touched on risk, and I think that one thing that having just to contradict my mortgaging your home, one thing that I would say is on a more serious note is it's very important to protect the downside. So once you've got a business going, I mean, initially you may need to risk everything, but once you've got the business going, obviously you don't want to lose everything you've created. So going back to the example of the airline, when I got that first second-hand 747 from Boeing, I did a deal whereby I could hand that plane back at the end of the first year if I was wrong about thinking that the world needed another airline. And so the downside protection was protected, and the most we were going to lose was 6 months' profits of our record company. So protecting the downside does make sense. As far as education is concerned, I think if you want to be an entrepreneur, I don't necessarily think you need a formal education. If you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a scientist, if you want to be fly one of our planes or go into space, it will be a rocket scientist. You definitely want an education. So, but if you're, I think if you have an idea, age 16 or 17, for a business, I would say, take a year off, try to make that idea a success. If it fails, try again. If it fails, try again. And if ultimately you're not going to make a go of it, then you can go back and finish your education. But the best education, I think, is out there doing it. What age did you leave school?
I'm one of those that was probably put in the box, so I think I went all the way.
You went the whole way. Yeah, but so I mean, the thing is that if you do go the whole way and you leave school after university, then you just have to make sure that you don't become too conservative. I mean, quite often by the age of 22, 23, you've already got a mortgage, you've already got a partner, may have children, and the willingness to take risks is much less than when you're 16, 17, and you've got nothing to lose. So you just got to make sure that you're still bold and brave when you leave university.
That's very useful, and I think very, very, very true. One thing that, and you touched on this briefly about hiring the right.
How did you start in business?
I was. You're the one being interviewed. I've been very lucky. I've had some great mentors around me, and a lot of them have just really pushed me and encouraged me that the possibilities are there and the sky's the limit. I've been lucky with most of the business partners that I've had, and maybe similar, if I can say. I think some of those partnerships have been with people that bring a real skill set to that partnership, and rather just being about capital, and hopefully in most cases on the same path for the journey that we want to take. But the big part for me has been the mentors. I've been very lucky in that regard.
Yeah, I suspect you've learned this now. I mean, once you know how to run one business, I think you can run any business. I mean, and I think obviously Virgin's the best example of that. We've got. Last week we floated a bank in England, a airline in America. We've launched a cruise ship company, and we've got the license to run the East Coast Main Line train service. So four completely diverse businesses. And I remember when we went from records into the airline business, people said, how on earth can an entertainment entrepreneur run an airline? And in fact, that was our rival, Lord King from British Airways, who said that. And I think what he was missing in his airline was entertainment. I mean, British Airways was very dull, very boring, very British, and we needed, they needed shaking up. They needed people, when they're on a plane for 12 hours, they want to be entertained. They want to they want the food to be good. They want the cabin crew to be smiling. They want cabin crew to be dancing. They want, great entertainment. And that's why I think Virgin survived the last 30 years. We came in and entertained. But when you've run one business, you realize that what is a business? A business is a group of people. That's all it is. So you get somebody to run that business who really knows the business inside out. I mean, we got the chief technical officer of British Caledonian to run our airline, because obviously the most important thing with an airline is safety. And then we brought in people who knew nothing about the airline business to try to make the airline sing, make it magical. A bank, what's somebody running an airline starting a bank? Well, again, a bank is just a group of people. And if you can get a great group of people who believe in what you're trying to do, who genuinely are concerned about the customer, you can build a bank. In Zambia, if banks are charging 24%, this sounds like the perfect market for entrepreneurs to get a bank going, and charge 20% or hopefully 10%, and you'll get all the business, and try to come up with imaginative ways of being able to afford to do that. I think Africa is enormously exciting. I mean, Africa's where the Far East was, 20 years ago, maybe, and it's catching up, with growth of 6 or 7% in Zambia. That's to be envied. I mean, Britain are proud of getting 2.5%. So Africa's got so much potential, so much, so many exciting years ahead. And I think now that Zambia is not got government running everything, and you're actually trying to encourage entrepreneurs to set up and run the companies here, that will stimulate the economy. That will result in interest rates coming down. That will result in a really successful, vibrant, exciting country in the years ahead. And I met people earlier who said there's already many young entrepreneurs, not necessarily well-known entrepreneurs, but everybody is basically an entrepreneur in Zambia, selling something, building something, and and that's to be really welcomed. And it's fantastic that Zambia's got 80% run by the private sector and 20% by the government. Governments have more important things to do than run companies, it's not something that governments are good at. And it's great. It's great, I think, that Zambia realizes that. So exciting.
It's great that you've touched on the government and I didn't have to bring it up. I think Zambia has demonstrated a very smooth transition where in other parts of the world, I think the story would be very, very different. As much as we're scrabbling and there might be a few incidences here and there, but overall, it's an impressive track record, if I'm allowed to say so. We're now in transition to the 6th president for the country in only a period of 20 years. South Africa is still very much a one-party state, if I can say that, although it's democratic. So I think a lot of my peers, we don't pat ourselves enough on the back and actually say what a great transition we have done since 1991. But to the point that you touched on government, the general view of the new up-and-coming entrepreneurs in Zambia is that really government needs to probably focus more in consistency in policies that are a little bit more predictable and probably more driven towards the entrepreneur and less focused, although they are important, with the multinational, because the market still is very much FDI driven. And we just want to get your views from a government perspective and policy wise, what sort of things ideally would be suitable to fast track that entrepreneurial spirit in the country?
Well, I think what you say, 100% support, and it's government's job to create an environment where entrepreneurs can thrive, where you try to make taxes as low as possible, because that will bring more business into your country. It'll make you try to have tax breaks for new businesses, so they don't actually get taxed until they've got properly established. And if there's new contracts to be had, don't give them to the multinationals. I would prejudice against the multinationals. I'm sorry if they're sponsoring this conference, but I think that you want to have lots of small entrepreneurs, if they're willing to step forward, who can bring competition to the multinationals, and so if you have new licenses to be given for in mining, try to make sure that Zambian entrepreneurs get 80 or 90% of the new licenses. So and try to have lots of small companies. We fought to get a license to compete with British Airways 30 years ago. They went to extraordinary lengths to put us out of business. They waged a dirty tricks campaign. They put pressure on the government. They did everything that big companies are apt to do. We took them to court. We won a celebrated court case. We got the biggest libel damages in history. It happened to be at Christmas time. We gave it to all our staff. We called it the BA Christmas bonus. But anyway, I think that governments, if there are young entrepreneurs willing to step forward, it's great to have competition in every sector as much as possible.
Okay. Just one question, if I could go to, this is in relation to maybe some of your peers, and I know your approach in this area has been a little bit more diverse, but we're seeing a lot of successful entrepreneurs from across the globe who really look at Africa as a place where then they can run a malaria program or an HIV program. And by the way, we call those the McDonald's of Africa, because almost every single NGO wants to run that program, because it's the one that will get you a car, a big 4x4 with a big antenna on it. And so these tend to be the sort of things that successful entrepreneurs who become multi-billionaires look at this part of the world and they deploy that capital towards the negativity. And not to get me wrong, those are important things that need to be dealt with. But what do we need to do to attract the likes of Bill Gates, who I believe has got the headquarters of the Gates Foundation for Africa in Zambia, I could be wrong, but the likes of Bill Gates, likes of others that are out there, that they set up ventures that give African entrepreneurs access to capital or access to a transfer of skills or access to their platform on how they have built their businesses. Kenya, for example, has become a big hub for ICT on the African continent. How can we get such powerful individuals move in that direction and link to that so that it doesn't look like I'm letting you off the hook because you are here, but I do know that you have the incubator set up that you've put up in South Africa, which has been extremely successful. We also know that it is in the Caribbean, which is an area that's very close to you. So we assume that would, with time, probably roll across into Africa. But how do we get people like yourselves, that was an amazing story to tell, and you've got a country like Zambia with 80% of the population under the age of 30, and they're there, they're ready to move, but they also need access to alternatives, formal capital, transfer of skills, fast-track access to markets and know-how. What do we need to do to get access, or to change the mindsets of the billionaires that are out there that started off as entrepreneurs?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that there are quite a lot of sort of international entrepreneurs who've decided, that if people are not healthy, they can't perform, and therefore they want to help. They want to help with malaria programs or HIV programs or TB programs or whatever. And as you say, I think it's valid. It's valid that they're doing that. Virgin. We've got things like the schools of entrepreneurships that we've set up, where we're trying to help. I mean, in South Africa, kids from the Soweto who've got a basic business idea, find them mentors and help them get their businesses going, give them a better chance for their businesses to succeed. And maybe that's something that you and I can talk about. As far it's, you're not going to just have us lot doing it, you're going to have to do it too. Anyway, maybe we could talk about something like that for Zambia. With our foundation, we've set up, we put our money into incubating ideas that hopefully will tackle some of the big problems in this world. So, one of the organizations we have is an organization called the Elders, and the Elders are, Nelson Mandela set up with us, and Gracia Machel, his wife, and they're the 12, in Nelson Mandela's view, the 12 most influential, morally, people with high moral standards in the world who can go into conflict regions and try to resolve conflicts. So, Kofi Annan, Archbishop Tutu, and a lot of wonderful women around the world, and so on. And they've managed to, when Kenya was falling apart, they went into Kenya and they managed to knock heads together and get a coalition government formed. So, and interestingly, a lot of the most respected elders in the world actually come from Africa, which I think says a lot for Africa.
Okay, thank you for that background. And I do know that under Virgin Unite, there are other initiatives that you do promote, and it's something that you're very, very passionate about. And I think probably or actually before I go on that cue, I would like to say that we would very much like to take you on seeing if there's something that we could do in Zambia to enhance that incubation for Zambian entrepreneurs, and obviously have you as the patron for it. It'll be a very welcome development.
If I was looking at Zambia, I would just look at all the areas that are not being catered for properly. So, clean energy. Does every home run on the sun and the wind? If not, somebody should make sure that every home in Zambia is run, with clean energy. With the sun, solar is now cheaper than coal and cheaper than oil, and it lasts forever. And so there's enormous opportunities to make sure that the whole country is run from the sun, which costs next to nothing, and can save on either oil imports, or if you have your own oil, you can export it. So, that's one area, and you could just go through each sector, looking at if you've got solar and you've got energy, you can then dig wells. You've got water, fresh water. You can make sure the water's clean through the solar. So I think you just got to go through all these different sectors and think, where is there a gap in the market? Where can I, as an entrepreneur, fit in? Good luck. The most difficult time in your business career is going to be when you're starting. Where you're struggling to survive, and the only word that really matters is survival. And that for me lasted from the age of 15 to roughly the age of 30. I wasn't completely secure or felt guaranteed that Virgin would survive. We had one occasion, when the bank manager came on the Friday to my home to tell me that he was going to put us out of business on the Monday, and I was so angry with him, I pushed him out of my house, which you shouldn't really do to bank managers. But and then we had a sweaty weekend, and somehow we managed to find another bank who saw something in us that the other bank hadn't seen in us. So anyway, the initial stage is tough, and then once it gets to a stage where you'd have to be pretty foolish to go bankrupt, and fortunately Virgin's got into that stage now, and as I said earlier, by delegating, by finding good people, I've been able to find time for myself, make sure that I keep fit and healthy, which is absolutely critical, and something I would recommend to everybody. Even if you're in the struggling stage, try to find some time to look after your body, keep yourself as fit and healthy as possible, and now I can enjoy the fruits of what we've achieved. But also with that comes enormous responsibility, and so we spend most of my time on not-for-profit ventures, and doing talks like this, where any money we make goes into our foundation, and hopefully we do good things with it.
We don't have a national airline here. Our access to anywhere in Europe, England, the States, is either through Dubai or Johannesburg. Would you ever, in the near future, consider Virgin Atlantic setting up base here in Zambia?
International access to a country is it can make or break a country, and so not having good international access to Zambia, I think, has held the country back, and the fact that it's expensive to get here is holding the country back. I wouldn't necessarily condemn the Zambian government for getting rid of their airline, because governments are not good at running companies, and government-run airlines have cost countries, almost bankrupted countries in the past. But I think that what would have been ideal is if the like the slots into Heathrow, etc., had been given to new airlines or new independent airlines to have given that a shot. If we could see more low fare, low cost carriers setting up here, that would be really important for the country. As far as Virgin Atlantic is concerned, until I came here today, Zambia hadn't been on the map as a possible route, but I will go back and question our people and see whether it makes sense. But I don't promise anything.